Hello and welcome to the Rational National Live. I'm your host, David Dole. It is May 14th, 2020. Got a big show for you all today. Let me go over a little preview here. So as you see in the headline, Richard Burr steps down, not leaving the Senate, but he steps down from his role. I'll discuss that and why it's happening. Also, some Canadian stuff. Jagmeet Singh challenging Justin Trudeau on long-term care. It's a great clip. Also, Clyburn on MSNBC rejecting Jayapal's idea of a paycheck guarantee. I'll show you that. DSA membership is booming since the pandemic, and also something smart that they're doing that I'll discuss as well, that political campaign should also take note of. And some other stuff here. I don't want to spoil all of it, but cruise bookings, I'll tell you what's happening with that. And also Joe Biden is not looking too good. But, you know, what else is new? Also, before I start, of course, rationalnational.com/join. That's the Patreon page. Help support the show. Lord knows independent media needs it. If you've noticed across the board, not just me, but all of us, our views are down, engagement's down. And largely it's because YouTube continues to prioritize what they call authoritative sources, corporate media outlets, in terms of sharing their content. And when you go in, like, if you try and search videos, I'm not going to pop up. Kyle Kalinski's not going to pop up. I don't think TYT even pops up for the most part. If you search for certain political topics, news topics, you'll get MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, and other corporate outlets. And that's how it works. So support the show if you can. It helps keep us or keep me going. All right. Also, of course, super chats. I'm already seeing some come in. Thank you, Mandy Soul, for the little icon there. I'll take those as well throughout the show. So let me get started with the first story. So Republican Senator Richard Burr, back in mid-February, unloaded a bunch of stock, about $1.7 million worth, and that was right before the market began to plunge. Now, at the time, it was obvious when the story broke that he knew what was happening ahead of time. They had briefings, briefings behind closed doors discussing how serious the coronavirus actually was. That's when all the stock was sold off, including selling off $150,000 worth of shares in a hotel and resorts company, and also another $100,000 in another hotel chain. Well, now, this week, finally, maybe in the future, possibly some justice. So, CNN Politics reported that on Wednesday, FBI seized GOP senator's phone in investigation of stock trades after coronavirus briefings. And today, Richard Burr to step down as Intelligence Committee chairman. So this is really just the start. This is step one, and hopefully a long list of more news to come on this. But what I find odd is Kelly Loeffler. So she sold, from what I understand, sold off a lot more, at least $18 million more, in addition to what she already sold off, or what was already reported on earlier, $18 million more in stocks before the coronavirus crash. So she has, as of recording this, Kelly Loeffler is not being investigated to at least the same extent that Richard Burr is. We will have to see if she's also brought into this. I can't imagine she wouldn't be unless there's some political motive here behind the scenes in terms of just focusing on Burr. But hopefully we also see Loeffler go down. But it's amazing that people get into politics and instead of actually fighting for, I mean, this is an issue across party lines, but instead of fighting for people, they go there to make money. And in this case, when it's an issue of life or death, where they are fully aware of how serious the coronavirus is, and both Burr and Loeffler essentially did not share the same sentiment in terms of how serious they knew this was going to be, and instead their whole focus was how can I make money off this crisis. I mean, even if they're not taken out, they got to be voted out, but that requires people to actually pay attention. And for the most part, that really has not been happening. So we're going to see where this all ends up, but at least, a step in the right direction here. Okay. I think I already heard some super chats. By the way, how are you all doing? Kind of just jumped into this one, but I gotta say this week has been a little all over the place. On Monday, it felt pretty good. I mean, I've been dealing, like most people, I've been dealing with up and downs throughout this entire crisis, and usually the downs are because I don't clearly see a way out of the mess that we're all in. Now, some countries obviously are doing better than others. Canada, compared to the US, is doing a lot better. But that's also a part of the problem with covering Canadian politics and Canadian politics in general, or just not even politics, but the way Canadians feel about issues, is we look south of the border and see, well, at least we're not as bad as the Americans are. That makes people complacent in Canada, and we don't fight for as much as we actually deserve. So, that's another negative that I've been feeling, but it's day by day. Thank you, Mandy Soul, for your 2 super chats, including a big one. Camille, thank you for your super chat, and I'm Cullen. Thank you as well. Much appreciated. All right. Gotta quickly prep this next story. Luckily, it's one link, not too much to prep. So right now in Canada, long-term care homes are facing the brunt of COVID-19 deaths, with 82% of deaths from the coronavirus in long-term care homes. So with this being such a massive issue, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh challenged Justin Trudeau to his face on this issue. So let me show you the clip here.
80% or more of the deaths during COVID-19 have been seniors living in long-term care homes. The military had to be called in. Out of 14 countries, Canada has been deemed the worst in its care of seniors. Despite all of this, the Prime Minister has said recently that he doesn't feel it's the federal government's responsibility to find a solution. How can he say that to families reeling with the loss, that it's not the federal government's responsibility to play a role in solving this problem?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps the fact that the NDP no longer has many seats in Quebec has caused it to forget the importance of respecting the Constitution and the areas of jurisdiction of provincial versus federal governments. We will be there to work with the provinces as they deal with challenges in their long-term care facilities. We are there as a partner, but we on this side of the House will always respect the jurisdiction of the provinces and be there to support them in fulfilling those responsibilities.
Everyone across Canada has just heard this Prime Minister double down on the idea that he doesn't feel it's his responsibility, despite the fact that the Canadian military had to go into long-term care homes. There is a role that the federal government can play. The federal government, both Liberal and Conservative, have been consistently for decades cutting transfers to healthcare. They can increase those transfers to ensure that long-term care is adequately funded. We can also ensure that there's a national care guarantee, working with provinces to ensure that we are meeting the best standards. We can increase workers' pay. We can ensure that there's no more profiting off the back of seniors when it comes to long-term care. Will the Prime Minister commit to some of these care guarantees?
You right, Honourable Prime Minister.
It will come as exactly no surprise to the vast majority of Canadians that the Liberal Party will always stand up for the Constitution of Canada. We respect the Constitution, we respect areas of provincial jurisdiction, but as I have said from the very beginning of this crisis, we will be there to help the provinces as they manage the challenges that they're facing. The federal government does have a role to play, and it is a role to support the provinces in doing the things they need to do during this unprecedented time. We will continue to be there.
All right, so Justin Trudeau there, as he often does, very slyly skirts the issue, acts like his hands are tied and there's nothing he can do, and takes shots at the NDP for not having as many seats in Quebec. Now, yes, healthcare is managed by the provinces, but there is a national standard in terms of the Canada Health Act. I don't see any reason, maybe there's a reason for this, but I don't see any reason why long-term care can't be folded into the Canada Health Act to ensure that there is a national standard when it comes to long-term care homes. Because a lot of the issues in long-term care are in private facilities. Now, yes, public facilities also have issues in long-term care, but a lot of the biggest issues are in for-profit care. And a lot of the nurses working in these long-term care homes are being paid less for the same job that nurses do in hospitals. And so because of that, they're working in multiple areas, which also has helped to spread the virus around to all these different long-term care homes. So there has to be some kind of real national standard here when it comes to long-term care. And I think also taking private interests out of it would help the situation as well. But part of the issue is, in this clip, I like that Jagmeet Singh was going after Trudeau here, but I think he should have been a little more direct in terms of how Trudeau was misconstruing reality and acting like there was nothing that he could do. What Trudeau could be doing is taking a leadership role here and bringing the provinces together and actually fighting for some kind of real standard nationally. Now, so I just think there's more that can be done here that isn't really being explored by the Liberal government. But at the same time, as we've seen so far, the Liberals have been influenced by the NDP when it comes to their response to coronavirus, be it on the $2,000 a month. It's not a UBI like the NDP proposed, but the Liberals still took the $2,000 a month and made it essentially means tested it and turned it into the CERB. So they have that idea taken from the NDP. The 75% wage subsidy, that idea taken from the NDP. Expanding EI benefits taken from the NDP. I'm not saying this to attack the Liberals. I'm glad they're taking these ideas. But this is another one that they should be taking, as clearly the biggest issue here with COVID-19 is in long-term care. And to not take this seriously and look for a different approach to addressing long-term care, I don't think the Liberals are really going to be able to get any meaningful change in long-term care unless they take a bolder approach to this issue. All right. More chats. Ben Riley says, would you be willing to reach out and talk to Vosh on electoral strategies and other leftist topics? I think we'd benefit from that discussion. I don't really know Vosh. I'd rather just talk to you on my channel about those issues. So, yeah. But as I've said a million times, I think there are various ways to look at it. I think if you're looking at the general election as simply harm reduction, I think a vote against Trump is obvious. At the same time, don't expect Biden and the Biden administration to do anything for people. But when it comes to issues like social issues like abortion, there are differences. And when it comes to the Supreme Court and lower courts, there are differences there. And to ignore that is ridiculous. And also think of the impact that the left could not that they will have, but there is more of an opportunity for the left to impact Biden than it is on Trump. But also the reverse of that, I think there are also good arguments to vote third party, and really, as long as you understand that, every 4 years isn't the answer. The answer is to really invest into local politics, invest into, join a movement or join the DSA or something, do something else between these elections, because you can't just, throw these Hail Mary passes every 4 years and think that the Green Party or some other independent's going to make some big difference. The real differences happen on the ground. There has to be a real investment in activism, a real investment in local politics. That's where the real change is made. And you have to begin to really, I'll get into this in the DSA story, but you have to look at new strategies in terms of winning apolitical people over. So people that generally aren't into politics. About 40% of the country doesn't normally vote. 40% is a lot. So you get a lot of those people engaged in your issues and get them to, and through that engagement, get them to become more involved. There's a way there to generate that potential energy into actual political energy. And you're not going to do that by just voting third party every 4 years. At the same time, look, if you're not in a swing state, do whatever the hell you want. The real debate here is around swing states, is around Rust Belt states, even states maybe like Texas and Arizona that could flip. So I think that's where the real focus in terms of this, electoral strategy or general election discussion, that's where the real focus is. But this is going to be an ongoing discussion. It's just May, right? I don't think it makes any sense to really proclaim now that you're going to support Biden. Make them work for your vote. So yeah, that's kind of my stance. Even if you think you're going to vote for Biden, if you get polled, don't say you will. Say you're going to vote third party because Biden doesn't speak to you. Use your energy, use your power to or what any leverage you may have left. I know you have almost no leverage at this point because the primary is over, but there's no point to really commit now when it's just May. Let this ride out, see what happens. Okay. All right, this is maybe, for me, the most enjoyable story of the day, just because of how backwards Democratic leadership is. But yeah. All right. Democratic Majority Whip James Clyburn was on MSNBC with Chuck Todd, where he was asked about Pramila Jayapal's Paycheck Guarantee Act. So the Paycheck Guarantee Act, I covered this earlier in the week. It, if passed, it would cover 100% of paychecks up to $90,000 a year, and also guarantees benefits, including health care. Now, Jayapal was not able to get this into Pelosi's bill, and Clyburn was asked about this, and watch how he responds.
Final question I have for you is on what we're seeing with the big bill that you guys introduced yesterday. And on one hand, you're getting hammered on the right. It's a liberal wish list. But you also have some progressives upset. For instance, you didn't include Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal's idea of trying to have all payrolls or try to cover almost some payrolls for some businesses. So what do you say to the left that feels as if, well, if you're doing a laundry list bill, let them have some more on it too, since this is going to be a long, drawn-out negotiation anyway?
Well, I like our bill myself. Paycheck guarantee is great. And I think doing it this way is an efficient way to do it. In fact, I think it's the most efficient way to do it. But we have to pay for all of these things. And when you're passing a bill trying to take care of state and local governments, that's primary with us. Trying to take care of those people that we named the bill after, the heroes, those essential workers, the people I just talked about. When you're trying to make sure that they're taken care of, then you look at the other things. And we just got to the point where the bill just got too big. Now, there are things in this bill that will lay a foundation for us getting to what Ms. Jayapal and others will want to get to. And I'll include myself in that as well.
Congressman Jim Clyburn.
All right. This is so absurd. I mean, it's easily taken down. The idea that they don't have the ability to be able to actually get money into real people's hands, it's taken apart pretty easily with this single tweet from David Sirota. You just used a voice vote to pass Donald Trump's bill giving large corporations $4 trillion. And yet now you're pleading poverty for workers at small businesses. So they've done all this for massive companies, not just, yes, obviously led by Trump and the Republicans, but Pelosi's Democrats, Schumer's Democrats have gone right along with it without actually fighting for real help for workers. I mean, $1,200, a one-time check, that's nothing. You look around the world, you look in Europe, you look in Canada, Canadians, yes, it's means tested, but most people that need the $2,000 a month that is offered by the CERB in Canada, you're able to get it. Now, if I'm doing a video on Canada, I'll have criticisms of our system and some issues with that. But comparing the U.S. to any of these other countries, you are so far behind in terms of the government actually offering people anything. And it's not just, David Sirota was in the Bernie Sanders campaign. He's a speechwriter, advisor for Bernie Sanders. It isn't just Sanders advocates saying the obvious. It's also people from NBC News. I thought he was on CNN. He may be on CNN sometimes. But Sahil Kapoor from NBC. Congress is not paying for any of these things. It is borrowing trillions of dollars at record low interest rates, I'll note, for all the coronavirus relief bills. What's included and excluded is a matter of policy preferences. So Sahil Kapoor of NBC News gets this. He's more to the left than Clyburn here. But there's actually finally some dissent within the Democratic Party. I covered this earlier in the week. Jayapal was behind closed doors, had a disagreement with Nancy Pelosi on the paycheck guarantee not being included in the Democratic bill. But she's been doing this, over and over. Jayapal rips Democratic COVID-19 bill, quote, doesn't end mass unemployment or ensure affordable health care for everyone. The historic crisis Americans are facing will not end on its own. To end it, these three things, getting people paychecks, ensuring access to health care, and supporting businesses and their workers are critical. But this legislation does not yet address them at the scale necessary. And look, this isn't even an issue. This isn't even an ideological disagreement. I mean, ensuring access to health care, that's not Medicare for all. That's ensuring access to health care. That can mean anything. And still, even with this, Pelosi still not on board for Jayapal's bill. Ro Khanna also with some dissent here as the Democratic bill expands COBRA benefits. The decision to extend COBRA benefits instead of providing the unemployed with Medicare or even ACA subsidies is economic nonsense. COBRA won't cover those who work for businesses that go under. COBRA is 25% more expensive than gold plans on the ACA and much more than Medicare. So the healthcare aspect of this, or lack thereof, in the bill, just another total, it really shows you how, I would say incompetent, but the Democratic leadership is fully aware of who they answer to. They answer to their wealthy donors. So they don't really care that working people, millions more over 30 million now? Over 30 million new people are newly unemployed Americans in the country. Millions of those had healthcare tied to their employer, no longer have that healthcare. So sure, they could buy into COBRA, but with it being 25% more expensive than gold plans on the ACA, and they don't have a job, how's that going to work exactly? I mean, anybody not arguing Medicare for all at this point, I don't even know what to say. It's just, it just shows you their pure corruption, because that's the only argument against it, is if you're corrupt, I guess you don't back Medicare for all, because there is no logical reason not to back it. How many times have I talked about healthcare on this channel? I'm in Canada. I have single-payer healthcare. It's fantastic. I have true freedom. Freedom of doctor. There's no in-network, out-of-network. It's a single-payer system. In a Medicare for all system, your Congress people, the wealthiest people in the country, would be on the same healthcare system as you. So how bad is it really going to get if the wealthiest people and your Congress people are on the same healthcare plan as you are? Freedom of choice when it comes to doctor, freedom of provider, freedom when it comes to your work. Say you have a job that you don't like, or you don't like your boss, or whatever it is. You want to change careers. You can leave your job. You still have healthcare. You can go back to school. You still have healthcare. You can start a business, hire people. They have healthcare and you have healthcare, and you don't have to do anything. Endless benefits to a Medicare for all system. But even in this pandemic, this massive crisis, the Democratic Party leadership still isn't fighting for it. Luckily, there are people like Ro Khanna, like Bernie Sanders, like AOC, like Rashida Tlaib, like Ilhan Omar, Jayapal at points, fighting for Medicare for all, but leadership is not. But here's what they are fighting for. This is in Pelosi's bill. House Democrats' new CARES Act proposal would expand PPP loan eligibility to all 501c4 and C6 groups with under 500 employees. 501c4s are essentially lobbying groups. So you have a lobbying group, don't worry. We got you covered. C6s are like chambers of commerce, it's like business leading groups. You got one of those? Don't worry, you're covered. But if you're just a person who lost your job and no longer has health care and doesn't have a paycheck coming in, oh well, you got $1,200. You get unemployment for whatever you have from that, and then you're done. That's it. Yeah. Just completely rigged and disgusting system. I gotta say, I'm somewhere in between depressed, angry, and just defeated. I feel like that's the energy I'm giving off, because that's how I feel. Depressed, angry, and defeated. Not to say that we are defeated. We're never defeated, but it sure feels that way. All right. More super chats here. Thank you, Stacy, for Bernie, for your unicorn. Celeste says, thank you for keeping us informed on things that matter. I was so ignorant before I started watching you. To be honest, you are truly changing the world. God bless. Smiley face. I wouldn't say I'm changing the world, but thank you. It's very kind of you to say that. Aspie for Peace says ODSP recipients will be getting more funds, so that those are people on disability in Ontario. So that's good to know. Cool. All right. Yeah, I also didn't mention how students also, they get funds as well, though it's not as much in Canada as the CERB offers. But yeah, there are a lot of aspects of that I didn't touch on in my Canadian piece. All right, what is next here? A positive story. It's rare. Positive stories at this point are incredibly rare, but they happen. And they give us a moment to feel good, even though really, until we see some real change, how much is actually going on. But I don't want to get too depressed. Okay. Memberships to the Democratic Socialists of America are booming since the pandemic. Some actual good news here. So to give you the raw numbers before I get to the story here, in 2015, the DSA had 5,000 members. Then since March, has been 10,000 new members in the DSA. In total, they have 66,000 members. And apparently, according to the DSA, they haven't seen growth like this since AOC won. AOC being a card-carrying DSA member. Let me show you the piece here from The Atlantic. Thousands of Americans have become socialists since March. The Democratic Socialists of America have an estimated 10,000 new members, growth that organizers attribute in part to the coronavirus pandemic. Now, for me, this story isn't just about the raw numbers here, but also about the strategy, at least part of the strategy they use to recruit new members. I want to read this. I like this a lot. And when it comes to getting apolitical people involved into politics, this should be used not just by activist groups, but also by political campaigns as well. Abby Harms was laid off from their job at a Denver-based. Abby Harms was laid off from their job at Denver board game store the same day that the city went into lockdown. Within days of filling out a petition for laid-off service workers, Harms, who identifies as non-binary, got an unexpected call from the local chapter of the DSA. Did they need food or help getting groceries? Assistance filing for unemployment? Did Harris want to participate in a rent cancellation campaign? To the last proposal, Harms eagerly agreed, and soon they were a dues-paying member of the DSA. So, offering real help to people in a time of crisis, this is how you engage apolitical people. 40% of the country doesn't normally vote. These are people that are not engaged in politics. They feel like both parties don't listen to them because they are correct. Both parties don't listen to the average person. Both parties listen to wealthy donors, corporations. But if you have groups like the DSA and maybe political campaigns actually reaching out to non or apolitical people in this way, it is a way to engage them and get them involved in politics and supporting your issues. There's one more quote from this I want to read. There we go. Right now, the DSA is emphasizing recruitment, framing their efforts as giving struggling workers a way to fight back, the DSA Denver labor chain Maria Wood told me. Her chapter, which recruited Harms, has organized more than 200 laid-off service workers as part of a citywide campaign to urge Governor Jared Polis to cancel rent and mortgage payments. The chapter teamed up with other local groups, including the Denver Classroom Teachers Association and several trade unions, to urge the Denver City Council to help lobby the state government, which it did. While Polis has argued that canceling rent is not within his power, he ordered a temporary ban on evictions in the state earlier this month. Before now, such collaborations would have been unlikely because of DSA's radical reputation, Wood said. These days, people are enthusiastically working with the DSA, she said. It's a good time to be a socialist. So this is another smart strategy from the DSA. Organize with other groups. So the Denver Classroom Teachers Association, Denver City, or not Denver City Council, but as one example here, to be able to use people power to influence politics. This is what is missing for the most part, and why it's been so hard to get people engaged in, or it was so hard to get people engaged in the primary. So Bernie, a big part of the reason Bernie was not able to win, apart from issues like the media, was that he was not able to really engage voters under 45 that don't normally vote. So for the most part during the primary, it was still largely older voters. Older voters are more reliable voters. Voters over 45 are more reliable voters for Democrats, or in general, not just for Democrats. But in order for a campaign like Bernie's to actually win, because his support was so much within the youth, within people under 45, there had to be something already existing on the ground of people engaged in politics to be able to use some of that energy and engage that energy when it came to primaries. But because largely it didn't exist, yes, the DSA, of course, they're growing, but they have no real power yet in terms of national power. It was a lot harder for Bernie to be able to get people out because there really was nothing on the ground yet, which is why you have to look at this not just simply as the media screwed Bernie, because of course they did, but also look at this as a way to criticize what the left has done so far and look at ways to improve and to grow the movement. And a big piece of that is local politics and local activist movements like the DSA. So if you have groups like this acting already on these issues, then by the time an election comes around, you can utilize that energy, engage that energy, and bring that into your campaign to be able to hopefully someday win. But this is really how you build it. And right now, as they mentioned in the piece as well, the political power that the DSA does have, so AOC and Rashida Tlaib are both card-carrying DSA members. There's also 11 DSA members that were elected to state legislatures in 2018, and more than a dozen others are seated on city councils across the U.S. So the DSA is slowly building power, a lot of it state, local power within the country, but that's how you start. You start small, you build on your reputation, show that you're actually fighting for people, and then you're able to, at some point, grow into a movement that can actually influence and change elections for the better. All right. A couple chats here. Beta Ray Tasty says, nobody here in the U.S. even understands what single payer is, I swear. Yeah, that's also part of the problem. I mean, that's why channels like this exist, to hopefully try and educate people on how single payer works. If you called it Medicare for all, though, I mean, it's people, I imagine Americans understand what Medicare is. So Medicare for all as a way to explain what single payer is, I think would help to help people understand. Like, people don't necessarily need to know the nomenclature. Like, they don't have to know the names of things. It doesn't really matter. As long as they get, hey, I like Medicare, or I get that Medicare works for my parents, or whatever it is, my grandparents, they should be able to apply that knowledge to Medicare for all. So I hope it isn't too complicated. But to your point, I think people don't understand all the benefits. I don't think people really, until they're told, they don't really get that, oh, I never have to think about healthcare until I need it. And even when I need it, I just go and I get it. And there's no out-of-pocket expenses, nothing to worry about, that you could have healthcare without an employer, change employers, have the same doctor, same healthcare, go back to school, start a business, you still have the same healthcare. Healthcare operates independently from what your job position is, what your career is. And they're just endless benefits. And I really do, I think the point that isn't made enough, that I made earlier, that I think would really help a lot of Americans maybe open up to the idea of Medicare for all, is tell them that your Congress people and the wealthiest people in the country would be on the same health care as you. I think knowing that, because Americans already know for the most part that the system is so rigged against them, if you tell them that under a Medicare for all system, the people that you think are screwing you all the time, and you're correct, they are screwing you, that those people, the wealthiest and people in Congress, have the same health care as you, I think that helps people really see Medicare for all for what it is. And that is a true universal system. So how bad can the healthcare really be if the wealthiest person in the country has the same plan as they do? I think that's a way to explain it. Loot the Rich Sarah says, did you hear that vitamin D deficiency has been linked to higher COVID severity and mortality? Note, though, you should only supplement if deficient. My understanding is everybody in Canada is vitamin D deficient. So I don't know. Yeah. I mean, there's no downside to ensuring you have more vitamin D. That's for sure. And if that's true, I'm going to be taking those vitamin D pills that have been sitting in my cupboard that I always forget to take. All right. Yes, this story. Okay. All right. I'm shaking my head because this is just stupid. I don't know how else to put it. It's just stupid. So, are you thinking of booking a cruise? Please don't. Cruise bookings have spiked 600%. 600%. Now, I'm just amazed at how careless people are. News channel here, NBC 8, whatever local channel this is. Cruise bookings jump 600% after Carnival announces plans to resume sailings. So obviously cruises have been put on hold for a while, and then they announce that they're booking again. They jumped 600% year over year. In case you don't understand how dangerous this is for you, here's an article from CBC. The coronavirus outbreaks aboard the Diamond Princess and now its Carnival Cruises sister ship, the Grand Princess, where 21 people and counting have been diagnosed with COVID-19, show how the close quarters of onboard life have become potentially life-threatening. The current generation of massive floating luxury hotels, some of them ferrying more than 6,000 passengers from all over the world each voyage, can function like a petri dish, creating the perfect environment for the spread of a plague. More. Cruise ships really provide a fairly unique situation because you take a large group of people and you confine them to a rather limited space. And really you rely on excellent hand hygiene. Americans really known for their excellent hand hygiene and infection control measures to be in place to prevent infections from spreading very widely, said Dr. Abdu Shakawi, an infectious disease specialist with the University Health Network and associate professor at the University of Toronto. Unlike airplanes, where a majority of passengers tend to originate from one region or country, cruise ships host travelers from all corners of the world. And while plane passengers share a confined space for a few hours, people aboard ships are in close quarters for days, if not weeks. So when you introduce something like COVID-19 to a cruise ship where people have nowhere to go, it's the same people on that cruise for a week or more, it's going to go around. And that's what happened and was a big part of the reason that the COVID-19 was spreading like wildfire on cruises and why they had to be shut down and put on hold until apparently the summer, where they think it's going to go away. Look, if you're dying to go on a cruise, at least wait until a vaccine. Wait until you get the vaccine and then think about it. This is not for your own health. Look, I want people to have fun, have a good time, go to the park. But to go on a cruise ship where you have nowhere to go, I just think you're clearly putting your life at risk. Quote, "If I had a cruise booked, I would frankly cancel it," he said. You just don't have that degree of control. You don't have that amount of flexibility when you're stuck on a vessel with 3,000 or 4,000 or more other passengers, and you're kind of at the mercy of the local authorities. There is no easy way off a cruise. You're stuck on a boat in the middle of the ocean. Yeah. This should be obvious, but apparently it's not. Now, I will say, according to the story, apparently a lot of the bookings are from younger people. So maybe they think, hey, we're good. We're young. No big deal. In fact, I was reading here. I think it was in this piece. Or maybe it may have been a different piece. But some of the cruise vacations are like $28 a day. So really cheap for a vacation. And that is why they are booming like this. But $28 a day may seem cheap, but if it's your life, it's really not worth it. Thomas Smith, literally dying for a cruise. Yeah. All right, I am zooming through my stories. I got one left. I have some others that I didn't really prepare, so I'm not really gonna get to them. But I'll engage the chat after this. How about that? I will say when I was younger, how old was I? I forget, like 16. I was on a cruise. My parents took me on a cruise. And I can't take boats. I was seasick almost the entire time. It was not a good time. And I don't really get the appeal. I don't really get it. I don't get why if you're going to go on a vacation like that, just go to a resort where you have a beach at least. I don't really get the appeal of being in a giant floating mall with pools on top. It's weird to me. But, whatever floats your boat, literally. Okay. So guess what? Joe Biden, not looking too good. I know. Breaking news. Joe Biden's not looking too good for the election in November. Now, to be fair, I do have some issues with this poll, at least the way it appears. But here you go from CNN. Battleground states. This was taken May 7th to 10th. Trump at 52%, a +7 over Joe Biden at 45%. And this was in a bunch of battleground states. Now, looking into the details on this, and somebody on Twitter actually asked me about this, so I looked into the information. The way they conducted this poll, not many people were really polled, and they also lumped all the swing states together. So it was a national poll, but they had a few more people polled in these battleground states, and they used that as a way to look at, overall, how is Biden doing in battleground states versus Trump? So it's a flawed way to look at it. That said, I would not be surprised if this was the actual result, regardless of the actual of how the poll was conducted. Because look, Biden, while he may be looking fine nationally, much like the way Hillary did, so not by much still. Biden's, beating Trump maybe 3 points, 4 points nationally at most. When it comes to national polling, it doesn't really paint the proper picture because it completely ignores the Electoral College. So yes, Biden may still win the popular vote in this polling scenario, but that doesn't mean he's going to win the swing states. Now, I will show you this as well, though. Ryan Struck, I think this is part of the same CNN poll. Voters over 65 years old. So in exit polls in 2016, Clinton lost voters over 65, 52 to 45. And right now in the CNN poll, Biden is winning voters over 65, 57 to 42. Now, this looks pretty good. But again, it's a national poll. So are there going to be more voters in, there's more voters in California and New York. So are they overestimating in terms of how many voters over 65 Biden actually has? Because sure, maybe nationally Biden looks good because he has those older voters in California and New York. But that doesn't mean that's where he needs the votes. He needs the votes in those battleground states. So even if Biden wins, this is the other part of it. Even if Biden wins some of these older voters, if turnout is still low, then Trump's going to win. Biden has to be able to get people out to vote. Democrats win when turnout is high. Republicans win when turnout is low. That's because most people, by and large, actually would lean Democrat if they find that the Democrat on the ticket's actually fighting for their issues. So that 40% that doesn't normally vote. If Biden's able to engage those people with some real policy ideas, some real solutions like Medicare for all, free public college, canceling student debt, whatever it is, then he can engage those people, get them out to vote for him in November. But I don't know why sometimes I don't know why I even talk about that, because he's not going to support those issues. Biden supports what he supports because of the wealthy interests that back him. And nothing will ever change that. If you remember, back in 2016, some people thought, well, if Trump wins and Hillary loses, the Democratic Party will wake up and they'll realize they got to be more progressive. And, if Bernie runs again, he's going to win in a landslide in the primary and be able to go on and defeat Trump. That didn't happen. The Democratic Party is not going to learn because they don't want to learn. The Democratic Party operates the way it is because of the interests that they support, because of those corporate donors, because of the consultants, because of the leadership within the party. So if you want to change the party, you actually have to change the leadership. Pelosi has to go. Schumer has to go. Tom Perez has to go. The entire Democratic leadership has to go. You're not going to change the party by showing them another loss. In this case, say Joe Biden loses. They're not going to all of a sudden wake up and think, okay, next time we got to go really progressive. That's not going to happen. The Democratic Party leadership is going to win either way because they will retain control of the party. Their big fight was Bernie Sanders. They won that fight. Now, if they go up against Trump and they lose, it doesn't matter for them because they still have the power. Of course, they would prefer Biden to win because they want a little more power. But even if Biden loses, leadership stays the same, consultants stay the same, corporate donors stay the same. This is why primaries are the most important part of these elections. If you don't have the right candidate out of the primary, then you have a party, Democratic Party, that is not going to represent real voters. So that's just, that's how it is. I'm very positive today. Oh my goodness. All right, let me engage the chat here. Let me grab these super chats first. All right. Tim Mammal says, thank you for emphasizing that every 4 years is not going to affect change. It must be ongoing grassroots activity. This isn't a spectator sport. Yeah. People need to understand that. I mean, all the focus and really even all the anger that's happening right now in terms of, I don't know. I don't want to get into that too much, but like, I get why people are angry at the party, and they should be, and angry at the media, and they should be. But to only focus on that anger and not focus on putting that energy into growing something within your country, you have to be doing both at least. So if you're pissed off about the party, pissed off about the media, yes, you are correct to be angry. But also you should be using your energy to whatever it is, join the DSA or join a different group, local group, or help to unionize your workplace. Like, you have to engage people directly, face to face, on a local level, and really build that interest in politics. A lot of people don't realize the power that they would have if they were part of a movement and, unified that power into something real to help benefit their lives in a material way. If you can't engage people on those issues and really get them involved, then nothing's going to happen every 4 years. You can complain every 4 years and say, oh, I'm going to vote green. Great, but it's not going to do anything. Like, you may feel better voting green, but it's not going to actually change anything. To change something, you also have to put your energy into local movements or politics or unions, whatever it is. Find a way to put your power together with other people around you and use that collective power for good. The Sing on the left says, David, what do you say to those who need acute care? My cousin is a doctor, but she also needs acute care. She gets Medicare for all, but still wants her coverage. She gets Medicare for all, but still wants her coverage. I don't know. She gets Medicare for all, but how does she get Medicare for all? There's no Medicare for all. I'm not exactly sure what you're asking here. The reality is, like, Medicare for all in the U.S. covers or would cover everything. Under Bernie's plan, it covers more than what we have in Canada. It covers dental care. It covers pharma, I believe, or at least partially covers pharma. So there are still there's still private insurance options through employers. So larger companies mostly offer the ability for extra care. So say you want like a private hospital bed, you can pay into that and get some of that care. But I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. Polly Fufu says, "Hey David, thanks for being here. Love your show." Thank you, Polly. All right. Let me check. Let me check chat. I'm just going to grab some random chats. See if anything pops up that I can jump into. New chat. So you're clarifying here. Your super chat. This thing on the left. She understands Medicare for all, but she still wants her acute care. I don't know what acute care does she not have through Medicare for all. I don't really understand what I don't understand the situation. You mean like long-term care? Yeah, from what I understand, Medicare for all would just blanketly cover it all. So I don't exactly get it. I mean, long-term care is in the Medicare for all bill, which is something Canada also does not have. We have like this patchwork healthcare system. Oh, I just made a mistake here. Everything's fine. Samantha Sider says you need to do a collaboration with Creationist Cat before his channel is done. Why is the channel going to be done? DSA gives a left cover to Democrats? In what way? They haven't backed Biden. So if they give cover to Democrats, they're doing a crappy job at doing that. Look, people are going to... This shit... I'm sorry, this shit annoys me. You're going to find... No group is perfect. It doesn't exist. You're always going to find issues. You're always going to find certain chapters of certain groups that are going to have... Yes. But work with what you have. Or if you don't like it, then create your own group. Like to just endlessly complain about everything all the fucking time doesn't solve anything. Like you have to actually use your energy for good. Just stop fucking bitching all the goddamn time. It's really annoying. Sorry, just reading the chat here, looking for something. I feel like I'm just like jumping into mid-conversations. Dickie McGeezak says the Dems just need to take back the Senate and keep the House and make Trump wish he was never born for the next 4 years. I'm trying to figure out if you're saying that they need to take back the Senate and the House without winning the presidency. I don't know if that's possible. I don't see a scenario where they win the Senate and the House and they lose the presidency. Like, it would require big voter turnout for them to win the Senate. Massive. I mean, I guess there could be a few states that they win to take back a majority and still not be able to win the other states necessary to be able to win the presidency, but I don't really know. In fact, there's probably a better chance of them winning the presidency than winning the Senate. But we gotta see. Chase Palm. Cruises are popular among older people and families with young children because it's an easy vacation. Once you get into the ship, everything is all planned and set for you. Yeah. So when I was on that cruise, I don't even know how long ago. I mean, 20 years ago? How old was I? 15 years ago? There was one moment where the cruise ship docks, but away from an island because the island doesn't have, a massive dock. So you have to take basically these small ferries. I think it's called a ferry to the island. And as soon as I sat down on that boat, I wanted to die. Like the motion sickness of those small boats going up and down on the water. I thought I was going to die. I felt so sick. And you're crowded around all these people. Like, I thought I was going to self-destruct on that boat. It's just, look, there are moments, even on a vacation like that, where of course, you're going to find moments you enjoy, but for the most part, I don't understand cruises and why people like them so much. Like, I get I get what you're saying in terms of it being this already, pre-made vacation that's all ready for you. But if you don't enjoy the experience, it's not really worth it. Yes. So someone now I lost your message. Damn it. Here it is. Doug Grinbergs. I recommend Bernie Blackout, Matt Orfalia, part of the team. I found that out today on Twitter. So Matt Orfalia, who made that amazing Sanders video months ago, he was part of that Vice team that put together the Bernie Blackout, I guess, mini documentary. I don't know what you would call it. I need to watch that, though. I have not seen it. If you want to see actually, I can't show you. Vice is really bad about their copyright issues. But there's a trailer for it on Twitter or online. You can find it. Look for Bernie Blackout Vice, and it looks really good. I will check that out. Ryan S. David, what's the likelihood Ontario tosses out Doug Ford to the curb? Less so now. Yes, the Conservative Party in Ontario is still losing support, but I do think because people are largely being taken care of by, again, generalizing here. Yes, there are many issues with Canada's response, but because of the influence of the NDP on the Liberals, a lot of people are being taken care of right now through this pandemic. I think a lot of that goodwill is falling down onto provincial governments as well, even if they aren't doing all that much. So we're going to see now with Doug Ford wanting to open up Ontario a little bit more. If that doesn't go well, then he will definitely take a hit. But if it goes well, I think a lot of that positivity is going to rub off on him, even if it's not really his doing. But there are a couple of years to go, so we're gonna, see how that all plays out. So much can change. Another super chat here. Nicholas Garcia says, "Did you know the DSA has multiple caucuses in its membership?" What do you exactly mean by that? I did not. The Mark O'Brien says, I agree. Starting to get really annoyed when some on the left complain about every little thing and call Bernie and AOC sellouts. Yeah, it's just not... Displaced anger, I don't really get. Like, I get it if you think you can make a difference. Like, I'll give you this example. If all my videos, if I thought that the only people that saw my videos were people in Congress or politicians in general, then I would be a lot more critical. Not necessarily of, I mean, I'm critical now, but I would target my message in a certain way to those people in a way that I don't target it now. Right now, the way I cover these videos or these stories, it's targeted at the average viewer, at people at home. So, and it also depends on what I'm covering. If I'm covering, like, say, an MSNBC clip, those videos are largely targeted in terms of the way I'm discussing them at people that may watch MSNBC on a regular basis to hopefully snap them out of it. So I produce my videos with the intention of hopefully having some impact. But just having displaced, just getting angry all the time because people that are largely on your side are doing something wrong. Like, if Bernie was watching my videos, I would be, I think, a lot more critical because there is a reason. If he's watching it and he's listening to me and I know that, then I'm going to target my message a little differently and I'm going to be a little tougher on him and hopefully hope he gets it. But he doesn't watch my shit. AOC doesn't watch my videos. So my target, or the messaging changes. That doesn't say, my feelings on the issues are exactly the same. Everything's exactly the same. But in the way you message the video, in the way you message the information, it changes depending on what you're trying to accomplish with that video, with that message. But that's why I've never seen the point of just hitting record and screaming at AOC. I don't really know what it accomplishes. It's going to get, if anything, what I think it accomplishes is it gets people disinterested in politics. You become disengaged, disillusioned, because you don't see any real way out. If even the people that you think are at least sometimes fighting for you, even if you think they're just completely corrupt now because all you're seeing is anger directed towards them, then how is that motivating? I don't find that motivating. That isn't to say they don't deserve criticism. I've criticized Bernie and AOC plenty of times. Actually, there's a recent video. I think my most recent video on AOC is a criticism of her. But you have to use it in a way where, because these videos are going out to real people, the public, use the message in a way that has an impact on them and where they should put that energy. So this is also honestly why I'm having a bit of a harder time now covering a lot of this stuff, because there is very few outlets for your energy to go. Electoral politics right now almost completely out the window, except for a few primary races like Kara Eastman or Jamal Bowman coming up in New York. There's a few others I think in New York as well where there should be energy placed. And actually I should do some videos on some of those primaries. But there's not much happening right now in electoral politics for people on the left. So the energy has to be more directed towards local. And it's when it comes to a platform like this, there's not much I can really do in terms of influencing local politics. I hope that's obvious. So that stuff really needs to happen on the ground. And I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm always thinking about how can I better discuss this issue, or how can I better message it in a way that it's going to have some kind of impact, as opposed to just giving people stuff to be depressed about. Like, that's what a lot of this is. I've never really viewed myself as, a news guy. So I'm not going to just talk about the news and be done with it. I want to leave you with something to sit with, whether it's a different way to look at an issue or whether it's a place to put your energy. And it's becoming tougher to do that in this era right now, because it's really, when there's a pandemic, it's hard to be positive. It's hard to find a place to put your energy. The Sing on the left says, I would say you have an impact, David. Watching you, Secular Talk, Humanist Report, Damage Report, TYT, Majority Report, Ring of Fire has opened my eyes. Thank you, Sing. I always thought your name maybe had something to do with Jagmeet Singh, but there are... Singh is a very popular last name, so I don't think it does. But thank you for that nice message. What else here? JMB says Bernie, AOC, and DSA are simply instruments to keep the left, students, and workers oriented towards the Democratic Party. I don't think so. I don't get how that's the case when the DSA is not backing the candidate. Like, I get what you're saying in terms of at least in terms of Bernie and AOC being a part of the Democratic Party. Or, I mean, Bernie's not necessarily. But there's no issue with finding various places to put your energy. So, like, you can both be focused on, say, trying to overhaul the Democratic Party or trying to primary people like Nancy Pelosi. You can both be focused on that and be focused on building a third party or putting your energy into an activist movement or putting your energy into unionizing. Like, there's no either or. You can do it all. I never really got this either or approach where if you're not 100% with us, then you're against us. That's not how I roll. There's all these different ways of looking at it. And you can put your energy in all different places. Good question. This is a good question. From Owen Gobo. What about Bernie's absence from the Patriot Act vote? Yes. I really should have covered that today. It just slipped my mind. Yeah, I want answers. I don't know. My assumption is Bernie was in Vermont and he's 78 years old. He doesn't want to, if he travels on a plane, he's almost definitely getting coronavirus. Like, let's just be real. He's a 78-year-old man. He just had a heart attack last year. I know he's healthy now. He's good. He's fine. But when it comes to a virus like this, you're really putting yourself at risk as someone in that age group. Now, if you want to argue, well, if that's the case, then he shouldn't be a senator. You can make that argument. But if he left now, if he resigned now, it wouldn't have changed anything. So it just, yeah. But I hear you. I think we need an explanation. I have not seen one. Maybe one's come out since, but I haven't seen the explanation as to why he didn't vote. But that is a correct criticism to have. 100%. All right. I may just jump on Twitch and play some games. Though I do like talking to all you here. Another one. This is making it easier for me when I can see a nice big highlighted message. Couple of them here. Okay. Rogue Fem 76. Thank you for being one of the few progressive YouTubers who doesn't trash Bernie all the time. It's exhausting to deal with it lately, but to be honest. Yeah. I used to watch a lot more progressive YouTube. Now I'm just really busy, so I'm not even sure who you're talking about, to be quite honest with you. But I don't... It wouldn't accomplish anything. Like, again, if I knew Bernie was watching my videos, okay, then it would make sense for me to always criticize him because he's watching me and I want to make him better. And even during the campaign, a lot I was talking about how they should be more aggressive and all that. But he doesn't watch my shit. So me sitting here focusing on Bernie when he has no power right now, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't really get it. Or not even that he doesn't have power. He does have some power. Let's be honest. Of course he has power. But he's not watching me. So by me, if I were to focus on him, I don't know exactly what it would accomplish. You got to focus on people where you can get some actual changes. So focusing on how crappy Nancy Pelosi is, how crappy Democratic leadership is. Honestly, I should be focusing more on Trump. Trump has the power right now. But because he's focused on so much, I don't see much of a reason for me to focus on him. But that's where the energy has to be. And this is also, I think, a huge benefit when it comes to if Trump lost to Biden. Not that Biden's going to do anything good. No. But what it does have at that point, if Biden is in power, think about how Bernie was when Obama was in power. Bernie was out there criticizing Barack Obama in public. So you would, and with the people on the left now, like AOC has been not very welcoming to Biden, along with Bernie, at least beforehand. Now he's a little more welcoming. But these are people that I 100% see them using their power if there is a Democrat in power that they could actually criticize. But because Trump is in power, this is how Bernie views it, I think. Bernie sees Biden right now as he's a guy with no power. He's running to take out Donald Trump. It wouldn't make any sense for me to really go after or put pressure on Joe Biden right now because the aim is to get Trump out. And then once Trump is out, then I think Bernie and Tlaib and whoever else will use their pressure on Biden the same way that Bernie used his pressure on Obama when it came to defunding Social Security, for example, or cutting it. So that's how power operates when it comes to the Democratic Party. Democrats aren't going to go after their own until they have power. But then in some rare cases, like you see with Jayapal, using her power to try and influence Pelosi, because Pelosi has power in the party right now when it comes to forming this legislation. So yeah, I feel like I need to write this stuff down and like have like a flow chart to really properly explain it all. But it's all about who has power right now. Trump has the power right now. If a Democrat was in power, then you're going to see Bernie use his power to influence Biden in that way. But he's not going to do it now because he's going to think, hey, why am I going to go after Biden when Trump's in power? And, that's how politicians operate generally. But, yeah. More coming up. Look at this. All right. Tim Mammal says, just join the DSA. Keep taking positive actions. Cool. Good job, Tim. This thing on the left says, I think even if he voted for Republicans, I think even if he voted, the Republicans would adjust their amount. McConnell let people vote differently. We should be looking at the 10 Dems that did. Oh, in terms of the Patriot vote. Well, no, yeah. I hear what you're saying, but it was a very close vote. It was off by, I think, 1, right? So if Bernie had voted, it would have made a massive difference. But what you're saying is correct. Those Democrats that did vote on the wrong side, yes, they should be focused on at the same time. It's to be expected. So politics is also a game of expectations. If you expect certain politicians to go a certain way, it's not as big of a deal as if someone you rely on doesn't go that way. But, yeah. Ravi Parimi says, ever watch Brian Tyler Cohen's YouTube channel? I have not. I think I've seen his name on Twitter. Best coverage of Trump's disaster of an administration. Mind of the North Star. So we are canceling Bernie's lifetime of serving the people and pushing progressive policies because a few influencers are pouting. This idea that America is a progressive country is just not true yet. I take a little issue with that last point. Not because I think you're wrong, but I think the real issue is not enough Americans are engaged in the political process. And that's because they have busy lives. They got shit to do. They got jobs. They got families. So it's hard to engage those people, which is why when I discuss local politics and local movements and engaging apolitical people, that is how you build power. You have to engage people that are apolitical. And you also can't really expect too much of them, because those apolitical people, as I was discussing, usually have busy lives and they can't go, to meetings every day. But if you engage people and offer help to them, like the DSA, like the article I was showing you earlier, then that builds goodwill, and it lets those people that were previously apolitical now be maybe a little more engaged, more willing, more open to whatever you're fighting for. But yeah, when it comes to canceling Bernie, no. Definitely don't cancel Bernie over what? No. That doesn't make any sense. At the same time, we can't really focus on Bernie right now. He's not the path forward, obviously. Owen Gobo, have you seen Kyle and Pacman's beef with Blue No Matter Who? Kyle went on the Hill with Crystal about it. Your pick? I watched Kyle's video on it, which also had Pacman, the caller to Pacman. I wouldn't call it a beef. I don't think there's no beef. It's the caller that called into Pacman's show that. So if you don't know the story, somebody called into David Pacman's show and was unhappy that Kyle Kulinski is not supporting Joe Biden. Now, when it comes to my pick, I don't got to pick. I don't got to vote, so I don't got to pick. I'm taking the neutral position here because honestly, I think it matters where you live. I think both sides have good arguments, and I understand both positions because Kyle and Pacman both have a different view of what voting in November means. For Kyle, I think he makes a very reasonable case that Biden only has to do a few small, simple things like promising to legalize marijuana through an executive order to win over a vote. And that is an incredibly popular issue. It's an easy thing Biden would be able to support, and he's not. And I think Kyle has enough power to be able to demand something like that. I think he has enough power where the stuff that he says can actually make it to the Biden campaign. So the position Kyle has taken, I think, makes total sense for who he is, for what he's saying. I got no issue at all. And I do have an issue with the caller into Pacman's show who was trying to shame Kyle or shame those people into voting his way, because that's not going to work. You're not going to shame people into voting your way. I mean, I think Kyle also discussed this. He's not shaming people that are going to vote for Joe Biden. So why is he going to take shame from people that are voting for Biden? Shame just doesn't work. It doesn't. And I'm sure I've used it before. And I'm sure I've made mistakes. And I think we've all made mistakes in our messaging in some ways over the years. But I do not think it works. So that's my position. Regardless of how you're going to vote, I'm not going to shame anybody into thinking my way. I'm just going to make the arguments that I think make sense to me and use that. Junie McGrath. I like how you talk about how Biden would be better than Trump, but you acknowledge Biden wouldn't change much economically. It's an agnostic approach, and it's how I'm viewing this election. Yeah. I mean, I think that's just reality. Yeah, I don't know what else to say there. Thank you for the super chat. Ravi Premi says, with Trump's administration destroying the rule of law each day, what choice is left for voters? There you go. Y'all can make your own arguments. Some are good, some are bad. But in terms of, I'm never going to tell someone to, vote third party who's really afraid about abortion rights. And I'm never going to tell somebody to vote for Biden, who doesn't want to vote for someone who's sexually assaulted. So, like, either of those cases, it wouldn't make any sense for me to tell someone to vote a certain way. I just present the arguments, and you look at whatever argument works for you. I also, at the same time, hope people understand that your real power is between the elections, is building power between the elections, locally, building it through movements, building it through unions, building it through just conversations with people that are apolitical. That is where your real power is. Your real power isn't voting every 4 years. I'm enjoying this. I should just do super chats, just super chat shows. It's better than my stories. Where was I here? Mr. Sir says, I just want to say that Kyle lives in a deep blue state and we live in an electoral college. Complaining about him not voting is stupid and pointless. Yes. Yes. At the same time, like, I assume your response is to the caller in David Pakman's show, as I think Kyle makes a perfectly great argument. But at the same time, I also think it's important to understand, people live in different states. And Kyle's speaking for himself when he's talking about how he's going to vote, or how he would vote. I think he's discussed this, where in 2016, he said that in 2016, he said that if he lived in a swing state, he'd vote for Hillary. But he lives in New York. He doesn't have to. This time he's saying, even if he didn't live in a swing state, or even if he did live in a swing state, he would not vote for Biden. And look, his approach to voting is, I think it makes total sense. And he's asking for very little. Like, legalizing weed is not something huge. I think he has some other ones that he points out, but they're very doable things for a Joe Biden campaign. That the campaign is just so incompetent that even, like, when it comes to the legalization of marijuana, it's very easy for a neoliberal administration to do that, because it's still about capitalist interests. It's about making money off of a new industry. So there's not some big barrier. It's not about, like, you're not cutting out like big donors to you. I mean, maybe he's afraid of, I don't know, the alcohol industry. That's why Biden's not supporting legalizing marijuana. I honestly don't know. But I think this is why the Liberal Party in Canada was completely okay with legalizing marijuana, because it meant more money. It meant revenue. So they saw no downside to it. But when it comes to, like, Medicare for all, they got to think about the health insurance industry, and Biden's not going to upset them. Mateus N says, notice that one of the former presidential candidates, Marianne Williamson, replied to one of your tweets. That's crazy. Congrats. Yeah, she just retweeted the video I did of her destroying Tommy Lahren. Jim Parker says, Kyle also wants to keep his leverage on Biden. Yeah. And again, it's all in context, right? Kyle has actual power when it comes to that. So it totally makes sense for him to take that position. And I think anybody with that kind of platform should be using their power in a similar way. It really does not make sense to right now say you're going to vote for Biden if you have a massive platform and you're on the left, because you could be using that power to maybe pressure the Democratic Party in the Biden campaign. Now, of course, they're not going to look. No one's under any illusion that Biden's going to turn into Bernie Sanders, obviously, but Kyle, like, what Kyle's asking for is very doable for a Biden campaign. And it should be, I think other lefties with platforms should be looking at how he's approaching this election. I think it makes sense. Me, as somebody who doesn't have much power, I just look at the different arguments and present them and tell you what I think makes sense and what doesn't. And also, as someone who doesn't have to vote, I also have the freedom of not having to really commit either way. Ravi Parimi says, what's your take on Biden's involvement in going after Michael Flynn? He seems to have lied to Stephanopoulos on TV about his role. He can always play the dementia card when in trouble. I have not even followed this at all. So, no idea. I don't know. It's a great question if I paid attention. But as I got to cover 2 countries, there are things I just miss sometimes. And I did not follow that story at all. All right, let's wind down here. Before I go, though, make sure you like the video right now. I'll still do some more talking here, but like the video, subscribe, join if you want, or if you can. Also, Patreon. I gotta say, I prefer personally if you join on Patreon as opposed to YouTube. But either way, I appreciate the support. And what else? Oh, Twitch. Also follow me on Twitch, as I'm sometimes consistent going on there, if that makes any sense. Mike, what's your last name? Mike Galassi. Mike Galassi. This message was hidden because apparently it's too spicy for YouTube. David likes to smell toes. I just approved your message so everybody can see that. I really enjoy that comedy. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. I'm not sure if you're actually making a criticism of me or, trying to hurt my feelings or making any kind of statement based on reality, but I laughed. Thank you for that. Biden is relentlessly uninspiring, says Sarah Tingen. Yes, he is. Another big issue. Biden has any single problem you can think of in a politician. He has it. I mean, what doesn't he have? He has a horrible record. He has a horrible platform. He's been on the wrong side of issues his entire career. He has these allegations against him. He had the mental issues. He's not inspiring. It's just the ultimate worst candidate I have ever seen in my lifetime. I'm sure there's been worse, but as far as my lifetime, got to be the worst. Ravi says, no excuse for missing out on the news, David. Do you know what the news entails? There is so much the news. The news is all the time. I'm definitely going to miss certain things in the news. All right. We had a good time. It's a good time. Had a great time. Progressive News says you have more influence than you think. Maybe that's true. I don't feel it, but maybe that's true. Sam O says, do you ever get told if you look like Chris Stuckman, a YouTube movie reviewer? I feel like I've heard that name. I'm going to bring up his image and we're all going to see if I look like him. A little bit. A little bit. Do I look like him? I guess a little bit. I don't know. I'm not really good at telling, as it's my own face. There's also this one. I don't know. I get the beard, but I mean, for one, he's a redhead, I think. The eyes, maybe a little bit. I sort of see it. More super chats coming. delaying my ability to leave, but thank you. No, I read that one. Owen Gobo says, any word on Nina or Jesse running? I've heard that Jesse's not running, at least not for the Green Party. And Nina, I've heard nothing. I mean, look, if Nina or Jesse runs, then that changes the game a little bit, because both of them are a known quantity. I think they have the ability to be able to really attract voters. But I think Nina may be a little worried about taking votes away and leading to a Trump victory. Jesse, I know doesn't care. I can see Jesse running, but he's got to have a party, I guess. All right. There's about a minute delay, so I'll give you all a minute before I leave to finish up these chats, just to make sure I don't miss anybody. The Mark O'Brien says, hell no, you're better looking. Thank you, Mark. Sam O says, have you ever seen his videos? Struckman? No, I have not. Ravi Parimi says, we should demand that Hollywood elites blast TV with ads on Medicare for all. I think that will change the conversation. How do we demand that? I don't think... No, if anything, it'll make the issue seem elitist. I don't think Hollywood really helps politics. If anything, all that happens is that Republicans use celebrities to act like, oh, this is what all left people on the left are like. These wealthy celebrities, when it's not. For the most part, I think most celebrities are very much in, I guess, the center or neoliberal, or essentially they're capitalists. So they're not democratic socialists. They're not on the left. So using them to support Medicare for all, I don't think makes a lot of sense, unless it's someone that you know is already an activist that already supports these issues. But even then, I don't know if it's really going to do much. But back in the 90s, when it did have the ability to, there was some of that, as I covered earlier this week with Jerry Stiller. So check out that video if you want to see an old 90s clip of him supporting Medicare for all in a commercial. All right, last refresh before I go. I gave you all enough time. Junie McGraw with the last super chat says, as a man, I'm not going to lie. You're way sexier. Thank you. Very positive note to end on here. All right. Thank you all so much for coming. I'll be back next week. See you then. Likely on Friday next week, I think. But we will see. See you all later. Bye.